to an online version. Yet, it would be wrong to think that this whole journey to digital and online started in 2020 with the coronavirus. 100 years ago, Ralph Smedley started the very first Toastmasters Club in 1924 in California. As the word spread out, people wanted to have clubs all over the world. So Smedley kind of experienced a similar challenge to what we had. How to turn a local experience, club meetings in person in California, to a global international experience where everyone from all over the world could experience club meetings. The answer to this challenge were the first Toastmasters book. And the story, you know it. In 1970, the first woman was accepted in the organization. And in 2018, we had our first digital move to the online experience with Pathways. Which leads us to today. This picture was taken at the last division event. And as you very quickly realize, those events, our district division events, they are more than a competition. It's more than a contest. It's a space for us to get inspired by other speakers so that we, all of us, are willing to give more of ourselves to this practice of public speaking and do more speeches and grow as people. It's also a place, a door to the World Championship of Public Speaking. Can you imagine that? And finally, it's a place of friendship where we all gather and feel that we are part of a bigger thing. Yet, the question is, what does the future hold? It's been 100 years that the first Toastmaster Club meeting started with the books. Today, we are online via Zoom and YouTube. But what does the future hold? Maybe in 100 years, we will have contestants coming from space or from another planet. And most of our meetings, they will be done remotely from the comfort of our living rooms. The future is uncertain, yet what we all know is that 2020 will be remembered as a stepping stone in the world of online public speaking. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters, welcome to the District 109 Online International Speech Contest. This speech contest consists of a series of timed speeches, prepared speeches from 5 to 7 minutes. We have Nasia, our timer tonight, who is going to show a green sign at 5 minutes, a yellow sign at 6 minutes, and a red sign at 7 minutes. Speeches can go 30 seconds below or 30 seconds above those timings. If people go over, they won't be notified. Note that we have asked the judges not to consider timing when judging. The judges and contestants have been briefed and their eligibility has been verified. My chief judge for this contest is Keith Sheldrake. Keith, can you confirm that all the contest officials have been briefed? Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Keith. I see your thumbs up.
Yes, now I'm unmuted. Yeah, the judges are all briefed and all excited, ready for 6 fantastic speeches.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Keith. Now, a few rules. The first one is that all contestants are muted and have their video off while others are speaking. And I'm also asking you not to record the contestants during their speech. Well, our contestants on Zoom are muted, yet for people who are following us on YouTube, you can make as much noise as you want in your living room, but please follow the local regulations. We have 6 speakers this evening, and their order has been drawn at random shortly before. Our first contestant will be Isabel Lackovic. Our second will be Lisa Maria Gelhaus. Our third contestant will be Eric Fingerhut. Our fourth contestant will be Hilary Burke. Fifth will be Peter Karagianakis. And sixth will be Karina Shea. Each contestant will be introduced with their name, then their speech title, then I repeat the speech title, and then I repeat the name, and the stage will be for the contestants to speak. The contestant, they can stay in the room during the whole contest. Now, I would ask the first speaker to get ready and to signal when the video and sound is on. Isabelle? Isabelle?
Yes.
Okay, and what about your video?
Yes, I'm trying. Okay, start my video. Start my video.
Very good. Okay. Let's start the contest with our first contestant, Isabel Lackovic. Kindness, kindness, Isabel Lackovic.
What do you mean I missed the flight? I have like 1 more hour until departure. What? There is no flight for the next 2 days? You gotta be kidding me. Sir? Hello? Sir? 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 You can't just leave me here. Fellow Toastmasters, honored guest, let me get you up to speed. I'm 22 years old and I'm stuck here at the Shanghai International Airport. I'm on my way to see my college roommate in Korea, but I missed my connecting flight. I'm quite naive. This is my first big international trip, and I didn't bring any extra money because I thought she was going to take care of it. I don't have a credit card, and I don't even have a working cell phone to call anyone. I'm getting really quite anxious. Man, I don't understand anything that people are saying here. I don't speak the language, and I can't understand one sign here. What am I going to do? There's customer service. I'll just speak to them. Hello? Excuse me? Hello? Please, you gotta help me. No. There has to be an alternative for this. No, I don't have money for an extra hotel night. I feel so stupid here with my stupid hat trying to look all pretty. I just started this trip and I'm already completely lost. I just felt a tap on my shoulder and there's a man standing behind me. Excuse me, ma'am, I just overheard that you missed the same flight as me, so I want to make you an offer. If you want, you can stay with me tonight at my apartment. Did he just really offer me to stay at his apartment? My parents have told me since I'm like 3 not to go home with strangers. But he keeps on talking. Ma'am, I know this sounds a little interesting, but I have an idea. What about if you stay with my colleague, she's a girl about your age, at my apartment? Would that make you feel more comfortable? the offer is still really weird. I mean, he seems really nice. I look at him top to bottom. He's around 50. He said his name was John, and I want to trust him. But, you know, a serial killer could also be nice. What if this is all a ploy to harvest my organs? I feel like I don't really have a choice. So I accept his offer. But John, this guy, seems to notice I'm still uneasy. I see that this is still not what you're looking for. Maybe, you know what? Why don't you just wait here and I'll be right back? Okay, I'll just wait here then. I hope he comes back. Around 15 minutes pass and I finally see him again. He's holding a bunch of white papers in his hands and he says to me, "Hey, I found something. I found a private jet company who will still fly out to Korea tonight. And if you want, you can fly with me." Well, that's very nice, but I don't have money for a hotel, nonetheless, for a private jet, so no thank you. That's what I thought. And that's why I got you this. Oh, wow. This is a boarding pass to Korea tonight. Thank you so much. But I can never, ever repay you. I don't know what to say. You know, I truly believe in loving your neighbor, in spreading kindness throughout the world. One day, when you're in my position, I hope you will do the same. Wow. I was in complete shock. I had heard these words a million times before. Be kind to one another. Love thy neighbor. Kindness does not cost a thing. But what does that even mean? John gave these words a meaning. He didn't just say them, but he truly lived them. I was in awe. I was humbled by the human capacity of kindness he showed me. I never expected to experience such kindness, such generosity. He gave, and he gave wholeheartedly without expecting anything in return. It took a while for me to let this set in. And this event has changed me. I live by his credo to this day, and I spread kindness whenever I can. For example, I had the opportunity to help a young man with his interview skills and got him a job in hospitality. Or a couple of years ago, I went to Honduras and I met a woman who couldn't speak English and I offered her online English classes. I look down at this ticket every now and then, and I realize it stands for a lot more. Kindness can be given to anyone at the most unexpected places. You don't have to be a saint or rich. You just have to be a human that cares. The ticket to a kinder world exists already in all of your pockets. You just have to choose to give it. So I'll leave you with the words of the king of rock and roll. A little less conversation, a little more action, please. Mr. Contest Chair.
Thank you very much, Isabelle. Now, for those unfamiliar with the procedure, we are going to give 1 minute of silence for our judges to fill in the ballots. And after 1 minute, we come back with the next speaker. In the meantime, we'll have our next speaker getting ready, which is Lisa Marie Gelhaus. Lisa Marie Gelhaus, is it heavy? Is it heavy? Lisa Marie Gelhaus.
It is day 1 of phase 2. And I'm ready to go out in that big wide world out there. I've been getting ready for this for months. And I heard that if you want new results, you have to do new things. So I put on shoes and trousers, but not in that order. I rush down the stairs to my front door. I fling open those doors into that big wide world, and I can see everything out there. And just for 1 second, just one, I stop to reflect, and oh my God, the economy is collapsing. My job, it doesn't exist anymore. And the virus is still out there. I freeze. Contest chair, fellow Toastmasters, as you think about our uncertain future, how are you feeling? Is your stomach a little upset? Are your shoulders really tight? Is your heart beating really fast? We are pinned down by the weight of worry, anxiety, and fear. How much of this can we take? Viktor Frankl describes our capacity for suffering as limited. Something like a room that once full can hold no more. And yet we keep stuffing it full of worry and anxiety and fear. Have you ever wondered how it is that fear can have that power over us? First of all, you need to understand that our brains are designed to keep us safe. That's why when you hear beep and you jump out of the way to avoid an oncoming car, your immediate reaction is your brain keeping you safe. We have very highly developed brains and very highly developed imaginations. And that's the problem. Because the part of our brain that keeps us safe cannot tell the difference between real danger and imagined danger. So in both cases, it ramps up our defenses, which would explain people having fistfights over toilet paper in the supermarket. It gets our hearts beating really fast, and then it shuts down all unnecessary functions, like rational thought. Because you see, rational thought is a slow process, and it takes a lot of energy. So when we get frightened, your brain and mine shut down our capacity for rational thought. We become literally scared senseless. But today, I want to tell you that you have a choice. Actually, you have two options. The first option, you could just surrender to your fear. Give in to it. Let it wash over you, or freeze, like I did in front of my house last week. But that doesn't sound like very much fun. So here's the second option, and that is to go deep into ourselves and look for a place where we can go to think slowly and rationally. Jack Kornfield, an American Buddhist monk, tells a story that can help us understand this question of choice. But to tell this story, I need a prop. A Zen master was walking through the countryside with his students when alongside the road he happened to notice a huge rock. And he said to his students, "Children, is it heavy?" "Yes, master, it's heavy." "No, it isn't. Not if you don't pick it up." Friends, you need to understand that that huge rock is just like our fear. We can look at it, examine it, analyze it, decide what we want to do with it, but we don't have to pick it up. Now, I can hear some of you out there. You're probably thinking something like this. Yeah, Lisa, that all sounds great, but it is not easy to ignore my fear. And you're right, it's not easy, but it is possible. And actually, I'm not really asking you to ignore your fear. I'm suggesting that you honor your fear. And to do this, we can use a technique that comes from the practice of meditation. 3 simple steps that you can do even if you've never meditated before. And it goes like this. Step 1, name your fear. I'm worried about my job. Step 2, honor your fear by saying these words. Thank you, fear, for trying to keep me safe. And finally, step 3, you can let that fear go. I want to assure you that you can do this. It's true that our capacity for suffering is limited, but the possibility of our minds to imagine alternative solutions is virtually limitless. So, as you're sitting there now, thinking compassionately about your fears, I want to ask you one final question. Is it heavy? Contest chair.
Thank you very much, Lisa Marie. Our third contestant, Eric Fingerhut. Why me? Why me? Eric Fingerhut.
Why? Why me? Why? This is what I asked myself when I learned I will lose my job at the end of the year. Did it happen to you to become redundant or to be engaged in a reorganization? I hope my speech today will help you to deal with such things in the future. I want to share the emotions someone goes through, strategies you can apply to become more resilient, and the best tip I ever got. But first, who am I? I'm Eric Fingerhut, and I'm a professional change leader. That means I help organizations go through change, and I focus on the human side of the change. And in all organizations, when we change and transform, people go through the same set of emotions. You've probably seen them. It's a curve that goes like this. It starts with denial. It doesn't happen. It can't be possible. We're reorganizing the department, but my job will not be affected. What? They said they want to outsource in India? Will never happen. But then comes anger. How can they dare do that? I've been working for 10 years for this company, and they want to throw me like this overnight? Followed by fear. How will I pay my rent? Will I still be able to pay the school for my kids? Will I find a new job? And resistance. I will not transfer my knowledge. Too bad for them. And I can assure you, as of tomorrow, I'm just coming 7 to 10. What can you do when this impacts you? Everyone goes through those emotions. Some people go quickly, and some people take years or forever. According to the American Psychology Association, there are 4 strategies you can apply to increase your resilience. Start with friends. You need to go and meet your friends. Have dinner, exchange. You don't have friends? Well, no problem. Join Toastmasters. You will make plenty. And when you have friends, make sure you meet them, especially at this moment. That's what your friends are here for. In tough moments, you should see them coming and helping you go through that. Second, body. There's a Greek saying that says, a great mind in a great body. And in this difficult time, it's very important that you keep exercising. You need this activity to stay energized, to go through it. So go running, go in your fitness class or your Zumba class, keep practicing. The third strategy is about looking with a positive mindset. Yes, the news is bad and it takes you down and you don't want to be excited about it. Yet we see that people that manage to look at things positively get better through it. Look at the new opportunities that this is opening for you. Maybe finally you can get rid of this boss you didn't like, or maybe you can get a new job that is much more exciting, or travel the world which you always wanted to do. This is this idea of the looking at the glass half full instead of half empty. And the fourth strategy is about your purpose. How do you define yourself? Are you self-driven, or are you defined by your role? And obviously, if you have a higher vision of yourself, this will help you through such types of news. But now, let me share the best tip I ever got. To give a bit of context, it comes from a general manager in one of the companies I worked in the past. I will call it Sami for that talk. And Sami was leading the largest business unit in our organization when the CEO asked him to take an interim business unit on top. So what do you think happened? Believe it or not, our leaders, people in leadership positions, go through the same set of emotions. So Sami went through denial. That's not possible. I misheard. He probably didn't mean that I take that on top. Then came anger. I already see my kids very little. I'm traveling around the world. How can they ask me that? When do they want me to sleep? And fear. I won't make it. I won't be able to manage all of that. It's too much. And resistance. If it's like this, I will stop. I will go home at 5 p.m. today to be able to pick up my kids from school. The difference is that Sami knew how to deal with that. He went in a room, locked the door, and pushed himself through those emotions instead of trying to avoid them. So he pushed through this emotion until he becomes able to take charge and to look and explore what possibilities lie in front of him. This is what I learned also in my experience. People that take charge are the ones that suffer the earliest from a transformation. So today, I shared with you some emotions you go through, 4 strategies to deal and increase your resilience, and the best tip I ever got. If a bad news hits you, you know what to do. Go in a room, lock yourself, and shout at yourself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. Our fourth contestant this evening, Hilary Burke, the gift, Hilary Burke.
Have you ever received an exquisite gift, completely unexpectedly, in a situation where you never thought such a thing would happen? Ladies and gentlemen, fellow Toastmasters, in 1987, my fledgling theater company was working its ground game. This meant performing in big venues, but on the fringe. One of these venues was the Piccolo Spoleto Festival in Charleston, South Carolina. It's an ancient city by American standards, very charming, but still quite segregated. The white people live on the peninsula in the charming part of town, and the Black people live mostly on the fringes and in the north. Our task was to perform on the fringes, to bring cultural awareness to those underserved, those who wouldn't perhaps buy an opera ticket. We were sent to the most unusual places: a kidney dialysis center, a home for unwed mothers, and in dusty parks at the edge of town where the heat was so intense we sweat bullets, and the sun beat down on our audience and pushed them all the way back into the shade of the trees. It's a wonder they wanted to watch us at all. It was grueling work, but we loved it. We loved the nod of acknowledgement they got, our metaphors. We loved the applause, of course, but most especially, we loved when they came up to us after the show and said, "I've never seen anything like that before. That was great." We knew we were onto something. One day we received an exciting job. We were to perform dinner theater for a group of senior citizens who were fed dinner by nuns a few times a week in North Charleston. With our directions and map in hand, this was way before GPS and cell phones, we headed to our destination. Well, we zigged and we zagged around Charleston. We looped-de-looped around North Charleston, and time passed and we were late and hopelessly lost. The nuns had given us terrible directions. We arrived just at the time our performance was supposed to begin. Nervously, we took our props from the car and headed inside and begged the nuns for forgiveness for being so late. "Ah," they said to us, "don't worry about it. Just set up over there while they're saying their blessing," they said dismissively. Blessing? I thought. Well, I was raised Catholic, and as a child, blessing was a perfunctory affair. "Bless us, O Lord, for these thy gifts which we're about to see from my bounty to Christ, O Lord, amen. Eat." I thought it would be short. We focused on our work. I took the bag of props that made a backdrop and dumped them on the floor. Bang, 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 bang! They landed with a clang. Seemed a small price to pay, considering the circumstances. I started putting things together quickly when I heard a commanding voice. "Swing low, sweet chariot." I took a closer look at our audience. Fellow Toastmasters, they weren't just senior citizens. They were senior citizens, octogenarians plus. Clearly, they needed the meal they received every day. I was looking forward to performing for them and went back to my job. "Swing low, sweet chariot." We paused again. Our audience began singing in a call and response style that harkened all the way back to the time of slavery. Their voices seemed to make their bodies 30 years younger. It seemed as if they rose out of their seats. Their strong, clapping hands and beautiful voices reached until the heavens. It was magnificent, and it poured over us an amazing gift that froze us in place. It seemed rude to even move in this sacred moment. Our audience sang for an entire 30 minutes. And when they finished, yes, we did our performance. We did something that we thought they might enjoy. And in the end, we did receive a weak applause. Now, I have to say that during our show, I noticed the drooping face and dangling arms of people who had had a stroke. I noticed that people peered at us through cataract-filled eyes. And yes, I noticed people nodding off to sleep during our show. When we were finished, our audience, they took their biscuits and wrapped them up in napkins. They picked their dinner up in to-go plates and clutched them to their bodies. With shaking hands, they pushed their old bodies up from their chair and away from their table, and they headed towards a waiting van, a band of angels shuffling out the door. On that day, my audience reminded me that there are wonderful gifts in the world in the most unexpected places. My audience taught me that every human being has something glorious to share, and that lesson has stayed with me in my heart up until this day. I promise I'll never forget it. Master Contest Chair.
Thank you very much, Hilary. Karajanakis, Mr. Wog, Peter Karajanakis.
Go home, you bloody wog. Go back to your own country. We don't want you here. That big bully Mark, he's yelling out at me, but I yell back. I was born in this country. Mr. Contest Chair and fellow Toastmasters, do you remember a time in your life when you were made the target of rejection and of personal insults simply because of who you are? And at the age of 11, it's hard to understand why or what to do. Now, in case you're wondering, growing up in Australia and being called a wog is considered an insult, used to describe an unwanted foreigner. But with a long last name like Karagiannakis, how can I be anything else but Greek? And because I'm Greek in Australia, I am considered a wog. We're on the school playground. It's lunchtime recess. Big bully Mark is humiliating me while his friends laugh on. Hey, wog, what kind of ugly and smelly looking food is that? Mark, this is good homemade feta cheese pie made by my mom for me. Wog, what kind of a name is Karajanakis? Mark, that is my family name and I am proud of it. You're a wog. I'm not a wog, Mark. By the time the teacher on playground duty could separate us, I had a bloody nose and a ripped shirt. But you should have seen the other guy. We're sent straight to the principal's office, handed a bad behavior report, and told to go to our natural science class. We enter old Mr. Fleming's natural science class late, but he doesn't say a word about our timing or our looks. Today, class, we are going to learn about a natural bonding process that takes place in the oyster. Now, we can eat the inside of the oyster, and it is soft and salty and tasty. But if we are lucky, an oyster can give us a pearl. But how does it get its pearl? Well, when a tiny foreign body enters the oyster, a mysterious process takes place. So let's do some role-playing and find out more. Peter, you be the foreign body. Oh no, I thought. Labeled again. Imported from Greece. And Mark, you be the oyster. Yes. But wise old Mr. Fleming handed out script cards with dialogue and directions. Peter, begin, please. When we look at a pearl, we see a precious gem. But if you ask me, the oyster, this means accepting a foreign body into my life for 2 to 3 years. But alone, you're just an oyster. Together, we create a pearl because of our bonding process. Big Bully Mark looked confused, like a shark in shallow water. He grabbed my hand. Mark's hand felt soft, like the inside of the oyster. Maybe that's why his personality is as hard as an oyster shell, I thought. Wise old Mr. Fleming is right. Oysters, like people, work in mysterious ways. Mr. Fleming then asks the class a question that remains meaningful for me to this day. How do you react to what you see as foreign in your life? The oyster teaches us that an environment of acceptance and tolerance creates the pearl, and not rejection. Big Bully Mark's face started to look as embarrassingly red as my bloody red nose was on that school playground. Next day, during lunchtime recess, Big Bully Mark asked me an unforgettable question. Peter, can I get a bite of that feta cheese pie? From that day on, Big Bully Mark liked introducing me to his friends as, this is Mr. W.O.G., Worth Oyster Greatness. When his friends would ask, what does that mean? Let me tell you about the oyster. What wise old Mr. Fleming taught in that class, Big Bully Mark turned into school life. And I learned the meaning of acceptance and tolerance in my own life. Today, as a teacher, I help young students from different cultures and countries appreciate the value of an environment of acceptance. These young students are my pearls, and I, their oyster. Because no matter how different people and situations may seem to us or treat us, we can begin to be the oyster in someone else's life. And by doing so, we prove how true and valuable we can be to ourselves and to other people. Fellow Toastmasters, looking around the world today, consider for a moment how people are like pearls and develop best in an environment of acceptance. It's like changing people into pearls. Over to you.
It's time for the final part of this evening's contest, the interviews of the contestants. So please, I would like to ask our contestants to turn on their video and unmute themselves so we have a little bit of time to get to know them. I will interview Isabel, Lisa, Eric, and Peter. but not Hilary and Karina, as they are competing tomorrow. Let's get to know first Isabelle.
Hi.
Isabelle, can you tell us a bit about you? Where are you from? Which club you represent? For how long you've been a member with us?
I've been part of Toastmaster nearly for 10 years. I started out in the US at my college in Michigan, and now I live in Austria. I go actually back and forth between the city of Salzburg, or also known Sound of Music city, and Vienna, where my partner lives. So I go back and forth a lot.
Wow, a lot of travel. But I guess it makes good stories as well.
Yes.
And what motivated you to join Toastmasters in the first place?
I wanted to continue actually in theater, but theater takes a lot of time. And so I asked actually one of my teachers, like, what else can I do where I would have the chance to be on stage? And he said, hey, there's something called Toastmaster where they give speeches. And I thought, perfect, I'll join that.
Awesome. And how did that go?
Very well. I actually became, after 1 year, the president. So it gave me a lot of chance to also practice leadership skills that I'm still using to this day. And I love the opportunities, honestly, that Toastmasters gives, not only for the leadership, but of course also the community, which I think is the best part.
Thank you, Isabella. I couldn't agree more. Next, let's get to know Lisa. So Lisa, tell us about where you're from and your club and your experience as a Toastmaster. No, we can't hear you.
Oh, there we go.
Right.
They're actually going to let us talk.
Good. So did you hear my question?
I did not.
Okay. So the question is like, where are you from and which club you represent, for how long you've been a member?
Okay. So originally I'm from the United States, where I grew up, and I moved to Italy when I was 20 years old. And I live in Bologna now, and which I love, absolutely adore. And I've been a Toastmaster for about 20 months.
Okay, thank you very much. So it's 20 months sounds like fresh, but it's not so fresh actually. Almost 2 years. Yeah. Time flies.
Almost 2 years.
Yeah.
I love Toastmasters 2 Towers.
And where do you get inspiration for your speeches?
Where do I get inspiration for my speeches? I actually go into a dark room and think. And my best ideas for speeches come very early in the morning. I'm not a morning person, but sometimes I'll wake up at 5:30 in the morning by mistake. And before I fall asleep, that's when I get my best idea for speeches, in that theta wave time.
I see. And maybe tell us a little bit about your hobbies and how they have evolved in these special times.
I have tons of hobbies, but the big one that I developed in the last 2 months was I was fortunate enough to buy a new flute, a modern flute, just a week before we were locked down. And I don't know if I've ever practiced flute that much in the last 40 years that I've played the flute. It was absolutely amazing.
So you have to invite us to the flute international flute contest.
Okay, I will.
Very good. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
Eric, what about you? Where are you from and which club do you represent? And tell us about your experience as a Toastmaster.
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually French. I come from Paris, but been living abroad for 15 years. Currently living in Switzerland, next to Lausanne, in a small town called Morges, and I work in Basel. And that's where I joined the Toastmaster in the Roche Basel Toastmaster Club. And and I'm a secretary in this club, and I joined a year ago.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good. And so what do you think about this new online format?
Well, it looks, on some aspect, it looks very similar to what we do at work. So in the evening, I'm just happy to close my computer and not to look at the screen anymore. But in terms of delivery, it's very difficult because you don't see the audience. And so you don't, you can play a lot of artifice. I think we all found some of those, but not seeing how people react to what you say, if they got it. If they, and your body language is also not as natural because you're limited by the screen. And the room around you is not a screen, right? So that's I think the challenging part, at least
Very
my
true.
test. Yeah.
Very true. Thank you, Eric. And finally, Peter, can you hear me? Peter?
Yes, Bastien, I can hear you now, sir.
Yeah, cool. So please tell us about you, where you're from, your club, your experience.
Okay, well, as you probably realized from my speech, I'm of Greek descent with a long last name like Karagianakis. What could I be but Greek? But I was born in Sydney, Australia, grew up in Sydney, Australia, lived in the United States, studied in the United States, and I've been a Toastmaster since 2012, but unofficially, I was dabbling in Toastmasters when I was a student in the United States in the late 80s. In the late 80s, when we had the old manuals. Before the current book manuals went out of date, there were the previous version manuals. So I've officially been a member since 2012 in clubs in the United Arab Emirates. I'm a member of 2 clubs in Greece, actually 3 clubs. Athens Academy, Kifisia Toastmasters, and Glyfada Toastmasters. So a smorgasbord of tastes and goodies from 3 great clubs in Greece.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so you like diversity. It's good.
That's right. Variety is the spice of life, in my opinion.
And why did you want to compete? What motivated you to compete?
Well, I like to share messages that I truly believe may inspire people to be thought-provoking. And in my opinion, I think my message is thought-provoking. The only idea is how does one serve that message so that people are receptive to it? And that's the big challenge, I think, in public speaking. It's not about what's in your head, but it's about how you deliver what's in your head to people so that it has a positive impact.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Peter, for sharing this. I couldn't agree more. I see that our chief judge is back in the room. Chief Judge Keith, do we know the winner?
Yes.
All right.
I'll tell you. Not until tomorrow night.
Exactly, you said it. The winners are going to be announced tomorrow night at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. exactly, Central European Summer Time. Yet, I have a little something for you. Participation certificates, which you are all going to receive by email. And so really, congratulations for taking this step to go online. As we have seen, it's another challenge. So I think we managed through this somewhat well. And thank you all for having this courage to really step up and inspire us all as Toastmasters to move forward in our journey. With that, I would like to thank my team for this contest and then hand back the virtual stage to our conference co-chair, Liliane Shaftakola.